The Nevada sun beat down mercilessly on Nellis Air Force Base, turning the tarmac into a shimmering lake of heat that could cook an egg in minutes. Second Lieutenant Samantha Sam Mitchell adjusted her flight suit and squinted across the sprawling complex of hangars, runways, and aircraft that stretched toward the distant mountains like a metallic city built for giants. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. At 23, Sam looked even younger than her years, with a compact frame that barely filled out her regulation flight suit and blonde hair pulled back in the kind of precise bun that screamed, "By the book, Cadet." Everything about her appearance suggested someone fresh out of the academy, someone who had never seen real action, someone who probably spent more time studying flight manuals than actually flying. The other pilots gathering near Hangar 18 had that look in their eyes, the one Sam had grown accustomed to over the past 4 years. It was a mixture of mild amusement and barely concealed condescension. The expression experienced aviators wore when they encountered someone they assumed was all theory and no practice. Captain Ryan Torres emerged from the hangar's air-conditioned interior, his aviator sunglasses reflecting the harsh desert light as he surveyed the assembled group of pilots. Torres had the kind of weathered confidence that came from flying combat missions over hostile territory, and his very presence seemed to make the younger officers stand a little straighter. "All right, listen up," Torres called out, his voice carrying easily across the group, despite the constant background noise of jet engines and ground equipment. "We've got a situation developing in the Pacific Theater that requires immediate attention. I need experienced pilots only for this briefing. Anyone who hasn't logged at least 500 hours in advanced aircraft, you can head back to the ready room." Sam felt the familiar sting of dismissal, but she didn't move. She'd heard variations of this speech dozens of times since arriving at Nellis, and each time it reinforced the assumption that she was just another academy graduate who needed years of seasoning before she could be trusted with anything important. Major Jennifer Walsh, a veteran F-16 pilot with short auburn hair and the kind of no-nonsense attitude that came from breaking barriers in a male-dominated field, glanced in Sam's direction. "That includes you, Mitchell. This isn't a training exercise." "Ma'am, I was hoping I could observe the briefing," Sam replied, her voice steady despite the heat and the dismissive stares. "I know I'm new to the squadron, but I'm eager to learn from experienced personnel." Captain Derek Sullivan, a cocky pilot in his early 30s who flew F-22 Raptors and never let anyone forget it, snorted with barely concealed amusement. "Observe? Kid, this isn't flight school. We're talking about real-world operations with million-dollar aircraft and potential combat situations. Maybe stick to the simulators for another year or two." The comment drew a few chuckles from the other pilots, and Sam felt her cheeks flush slightly. But she maintained her composure, having learned long ago that reactions were choices, and some choices weren't worth making in front of people who were already looking for reasons to dismiss her. Behind her, 2 junior officers were having exactly the kind of conversation that Sam had overheard countless times since arriving at the base. "Look at her," Lieutenant Brad Garrison whispered to his buddy, voice just loud enough to be heard over the ambient noise. "Bet she's never been higher than 10,000 feet outside of a training flight. Probably thinks real flying is like those video games she grew up playing." His companion, Lieutenant Mike Chun, shook his head with the kind of superior attitude that young officers often displayed when they thought they understood how the world worked. "These academy kids come in here thinking they know everything because they scored high on some written exams. Wait until she gets her first taste of actual B-forces in a combat maneuver." Sam heard every word, but her expression remained neutral. She'd learned that dignity was something you maintained regardless of what others said or thought about you. The assumptions they were making weren't new, and responding to them would only confirm their preconceptions. About emotional female pilots who couldn't handle criticism. What they didn't know, what none of them could see, was the small patch sewn into the inside liner of her flight jacket. Black fabric with silver wings and a single star, barely visible unless you knew exactly where to look. No text, no unit designation, nothing that would show up in any standard military database. But if you knew what it meant everything. Torres checked his watch and began walking toward the hangar entrance. The rest of you follow me. We've got a briefing in 10 minutes, and the situation is time-sensitive. The group of experienced pilots began filing into the air-conditioned interior of the hangar, their conversations shifting to speculation about the mission and what kind of aircraft they might be flying. Sam stood in the heat for a moment longer, watching through the hangar windows as sophisticated aircraft sat in various stages of maintenance and preparation. She pulled out her secure phone and checked for messages, noting several missed calls from a number that wasn't in any official directory. The calls had been coming for the past 2 days, always at odd hours, always from the same encrypted line that technically didn't exist anymore. The program that had given her that patch had been classified far beyond anything most of these pilots would ever see. Project Aurora hadn't officially existed, and the aircraft she'd flown under those protocols were still buried, so deep in black budget classifications that even their existence was compartmentalized knowledge. Sam had been 16 when she'd first touched the controls of an experimental aircraft that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in aviation. While other teenagers were worried about prom dates and college applications, she'd been learning to fly machines that operated at the edge of space, testing technologies that wouldn't appear in conventional aircraft for decades. The test pilot program had been small, selective, and completely unofficial. Recruited through channels that didn't appear on any organizational chart, trained at facilities that didn't exist on any map, flying aircraft that never appeared in any procurement records. They'd called it developmental evaluation, but everyone involved knew they were pushing the limits of human capability, and mechanical engineering. Sam had been the youngest pilot ever accepted into the program. Her unique combination of spatial intelligence, stress tolerance, and intuitive understanding of flight dynamics making her ideal for testing experimental systems. She'd flown prototypes that had killed other pilots, mastered aircraft that existed nowhere else in the world, and logged flight hours in conditions that would terrify conventional aviators. But that was before the program had been quietly shut down, before the aircraft had been moved to storage facilities that officially didn't exist, before she'd been transferred to conventional flight training and told to forget everything she'd learned in those 2 years of testing aircraft that pushed the boundaries of physics. Now she was just another academy graduate, starting over with basic flight certifications and working her way up through the conventional ranks like any other young officer. The skills she'd developed, the experience she'd gained, the aircraft she'd mastered, all of it was locked away in classified files that she wasn't supposed to acknowledge existed. A maintenance crew chief, a grizzled master sergeant with grease-stained coveralls and 30 years of experience keeping military aircraft in the air, walked past Sam on his way to one of the hangars. He glanced at her briefly, taking in her young appearance and new flight suit, and his expression carried the kind of patient tolerance that experienced enlisted personnel showed toward junior officers who didn't yet understand how things really worked. "You waiting for something specific, Lieutenant?" he asked, not unkindly but with the directness that came from decades of military service. "Just getting familiar with the base layout, Sergeant," Sam replied. "Trying to understand how operations flow here." The maintenance chief, whose name tag read Henderson, studied her for a moment longer. "Piece of advice, Lieutenant. The pilots in there," he nodded toward the hangar where the briefing was taking place, "they're good at what they do. But they've been flying the same aircraft, following the same procedures for years. Sometimes it takes fresh eyes to see new possibilities. There was something in his tone that suggested he'd seen more than his share of promising young officers get overlooked because they didn't fit the conventional mold. Henderson had probably worked on more aircraft types than most pilots would ever fly, and his assessment of potential wasn't based on appearance or age. "Thank you, Sergeant. I'll keep that in mind." Henderson nodded once and continued toward the hangar, but Sam noticed that he glanced back at her with the kind of speculative look that suggested he was reconsidering his initial assessment. The secure phone in Sam's pocket buzzed again, this time with a text message from the same encrypted number that had been trying to reach her. The message was brief, coded, but clear enough for someone who'd been trained to recognize emergency protocols. "Blackbird down. Pacific Theater. Conventional assets insufficient. Developmental expertise required immediately." Sam stared at the message for a long moment, understanding the implications. Somewhere in the Pacific, an advanced aircraft had gone down in circumstances that regular search and rescue couldn't handle. They needed someone with experience in non-conventional aircraft, someone who understood the kind of experimental technology that officially didn't exist, the kind of expertise that Sam had, but wasn't supposed to acknowledge. She looked toward the hangar where the briefing was taking place, then back at her phone. The message had come through channels that she'd been told to ignore, from a program that had officially never existed, requesting skills that she wasn't supposed to possess. But if an advanced aircraft was down with crew aboard, and if conventional rescue assets weren't sufficient to reach them, then somewhere out there American aviators were in trouble with nowhere else to turn. Sam had taken an oath when she'd accepted her commission, an oath that didn't come with exceptions for inconvenient timing or unofficial protocols. That oath required her to be ready to serve when her country needed her, regardless of what the chain of command knew about her capabilities. She typed a brief response, standing by for instructions. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The reply came within seconds. "Report to Building 714. Ask for Dr. Elizabeth Carter. Come alone. Tell no one." Building 714 was on the far side of the base, in a section that most personnel never visited. Sam had noticed it during her orientation tour, a nondescript concrete structure with no visible markings and unusual security measures for a building that was supposedly used for administrative functions. Sam looked once more toward the hangar where her squadron was receiving their briefing about a mission she wasn't considered experienced enough to participate in. Then she began walking toward Building 714, knowing that she was about to step back into a world that officially didn't exist, to use skills that she wasn't supposed to possess, to participate in operations that would never appear in any official record. The heat reflecting off the tarmac created the kind of optical illusions that made distant objects appear to shimmer and dance. As Sam walked across the base, she passed groups of airmen going about their routine duties, maintenance crews working on conventional aircraft, and officers hurrying between buildings with the focused intensity that characterized military operations. None of them paid any attention to the young lieutenant, walking purposefully toward a building that most of them probably didn't even know existed. Sam looked like just another junior officer handling routine administrative tasks, someone so new and inexperienced that she wasn't worth a second glance. What they couldn't see was the years of training that had prepared her for situations that most pilots would never encounter. What they didn't know was that she'd already flown aircraft that pushed the boundaries of what was possible, in conditions that would challenge the most experienced aviators. Building 714 stood alone at the edge of the base, surrounded by empty tarmac and connected to the main complex by a single access road. From the outside, it looked like any other administrative building, with standard military architecture and no visible indication of what might be happening inside. But as Sam approached the entrance, she noticed the subtle security measures that marked it as something more significant than routine administration. The windows were tinted beyond standard specifications. The doors were heavier than necessary for normal office use, and the ventilation systems were designed to prevent electronic surveillance rather than simply provide climate control. At the security checkpoint, a civilian guard in an unmarked uniform checked Sam's identification with the kind of thoroughness that suggested he was trained to recognize more than just standard military credentials. He scanned her ID card, checked her face against a database that probably contained information most of the military didn't have access to, and asked her to state her business. "I'm here to see Dr. Carter," Sam said simply. The guard's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes suggested that he'd been expecting her. He made a brief phone call, speaking in code words that Sam recognized from her previous experience with classified operations, then handed her a visitor's badge that was unlike any standard base identification. "Dr. Carter will meet you in conference. Room C, elevator to the 3rd floor. Turn left, last door on the right." The interior of Building 714 was nothing like the administrative facility it pretended to be. The corridors were wider than necessary. The lighting was designed for optimal visual clarity rather than cost efficiency, and the security systems were visible enough to remind visitors that they were in a place where information was compartmentalized, and access was strictly controlled. Sam rode the elevator to the 3rd floor, noting that it required her visitor's badge to activate, and that there were more floors available than the building's exterior had suggested. The 3rd floor corridor was empty except for a few doors, marked only with letters and numbers that followed no obvious pattern. Conference room C was at the end of the hall, and when Sam knocked, a woman's voice called for her to enter. Dr. Elizabeth Carter was not what Sam had expected. In her early 40s, with silver-streaked brown hair and the kind of intense focus that came from years of working on projects that pushed the boundaries of what was possible, she looked more like a university professor than someone involved in classified military operations, but her handshake was firm. Her eye contact was direct, and when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who was accustomed to making decisions that affected national security. "Lieutenant Mitchell," Dr. Carter said, gesturing for Sam to take a seat at a conference table that was equipped with communication systems far more sophisticated than anything found in standard military facilities. "Thank you for coming. I know this is irregular, but we have a situation that requires your particular expertise." Sam settled into her chair, noting that the room was designed to prevent electronic surveillance and that Dr. Carter's credentials, visible on the desk, indicated affiliations with organizations that most people had never heard of. "Ma'am, I'm not sure what expertise you think I have. I'm just a junior officer fresh out of the academy." Dr. Carter smiled, but it was the kind of expression that suggested she knew more than she was saying. "Lieutenant, we both know that's not entirely accurate. Your record shows standard flight training and academy graduation, but there are 2 years of your service history that are classified at levels most officers will never encounter." The acknowledgement hung in the air between them, and Sam realized that she was sitting across from someone who not only knew about Project Aurora but was actively involved in operations that built upon the work that program had accomplished. "I'm not supposed to discuss that, ma'am. Under normal circumstances, you'd be correct. But these aren't normal circumstances. 12 hours ago, an experimental aircraft went down in the Pacific under conditions that conventional search and rescue can't handle. The crew is alive, but they're in a location that requires someone with your specific training to reach them." Dr. Carter activated a secure display system that filled one wall of the conference room with satellite imagery and technical specifications. What Sam saw made her breath catch in her throat. The aircraft on the screen was unlike anything in the conventional military inventory, with design characteristics that pushed the boundaries of aerodynamics and propulsion technology. It was clearly experimental, clearly classified, and clearly the kind of machine that required pilot skills far beyond standard military training. The Aurora 7 went down during a test flight over the Pacific Proving Grounds. Dr. Carter continued. The pilot and systems operator are alive, but the aircraft is in a location that conventional rescue aircraft can't reach safely. The terrain, the weather conditions, and the classification level of the technology involved all combine to create a situation that requires someone with your background. Sam studied the imagery, her mind automatically analyzing the flight characteristics that such an aircraft would require and the kind of piloting skills that would be necessary to operate it effectively. Everything about the Aurora 7 suggested technologies that had been theoretical when she'd been flying experimental aircraft 2 years ago. Ma'am, even if I had the background you're suggesting, I don't have current qualifications in any aircraft that could handle a mission like this. Dr. Carter's smile became more genuine. Lieutenant, you're about to discover that your qualifications are more current than you realized. Dr. Carter activated another display panel, revealing classified documentation that made Sam's pulse quicken. The Aurora 7 specifications showed propulsion systems that defied conventional understanding, with flight envelopes that extended far beyond anything currently in military service. 2 years ago, you were the youngest pilot ever to successfully complete Phase 3 testing on the Aurora 4 prototype, Dr. Carter said, her voice carrying the weight of information that existed in files most people would never see. Your test reports showed exceptional adaptability to unconventional flight dynamics and an intuitive understanding of experimental propulsion systems. The memories came flooding back with startling clarity. Sam remembered the first time she'd seen the Aurora 4, sitting in a hangar that officially didn't exist at a test facility buried deep in the Nevada desert. The aircraft had looked more like a piece of abstract sculpture than a flying machine, with curves and angles that seemed to bend the laws of physics. She'd been 17 then, recruited through channels that bypassed normal military protocols. Her father, Colonel James Mitchell, had been a test pilot himself, killed in a classified accident when Sam was 14. The recruitment had come with explanations about continuing his work, about advancing aviation technology that could protect American interests, about opportunities that existed outside normal career paths. What they hadn't told her was how the aircraft would feel when she first took the controls. The Aurora 4 hadn't flown like anything she'd experienced in conventional training. The propulsion system responded to thoughts as much as physical inputs, and the flight characteristics changed depending on atmospheric conditions that regular instruments couldn't measure. It required a combination of technical knowledge, intuitive understanding, and psychological flexibility that most pilots simply didn't possess. Dr. Carter continued displaying classified footage that showed Sam's test flights from 2 years ago. The young woman on the screen moved through flight maneuvers that seemed to defy gravity, pushing experimental aircraft through performance envelopes that conventional wisdom said were impossible. The Aurora 4 program concluded when we achieved the data objectives, Dr. Carter explained. But the technologies developed during that testing became the foundation for the Aurora 7, which represents a quantum leap forward in experimental aviation. Sam watched herself on the screen, remembering the sensation of flying at altitudes where the sky turned black and the earth curved away beneath her. The Aurora 4 had been capable of suborbital flight, reaching speeds that approached the boundary between atmospheric and space travel. Each test flight had pushed her physical and mental limits, requiring split-second decisions in conditions that no simulation could accurately reproduce. The Aurora 7 pilot, Captain Lisa Brennan, was one of your classmates in the original program, Dr. Carter said. She specifically requested that if anything went wrong during testing, you be contacted for extraction. The name hit Sam like a physical blow. Lisa Brennan had been more than a classmate. She'd been Sam's mentor during the most challenging phases of Aurora testing. 3 years older. With a background in aerospace engineering and a natural talent for experimental flight, Lisa had taught Sam how to interpret the subtle cues that Aurora-class aircraft provided about their operational status. They'd spent countless hours together in debriefing sessions, analyzing flight data, and developing techniques for managing the psychological stress of operating aircraft that existed at the edge of human capability. Lisa had been the one to encourage Sam when the testing protocols pushed her to the breaking point, and she'd been the one to celebrate when Sam became the youngest pilot to successfully complete the full Aurora qualification sequence. What happened to her? Sam asked, though she already suspected the answer would be classified far beyond her current clearance level. Dr. Carter pulled up medical data that showed vital signs transmitted from the Aurora 7's emergency systems. Captain Brennan and her systems operator, Major Robert Hayes, are alive but injured. The Aurora 7 went down during the classified test flight over the Pacific, and they're currently stranded in a location that presents unique challenges for conventional rescue operations. The tactical display showed an area of ocean that appeared empty on standard navigation charts, but Sam recognized the telltale signs of a classified testing zone. The Aurora 7 had gone down in waters that were officially off-limits to civilian traffic, in an area where the ocean floor dropped to depths that made conventional salvage operations impossible. The weather conditions in the area are severe, with storm systems that create electromagnetic interference affecting standard navigation and communication systems. Dr. Carter continued. Additionally, the nature of the Aurora 7's experimental technology means that any rescue operation must be conducted with personnel who have appropriate security clearances and technical knowledge. Sam studied the meteorological data, noting wind patterns and atmospheric conditions that would challenge even the most experienced pilots. The storm system showed characteristics that suggested it was more than just natural weather. The electromagnetic signatures indicated interference patterns that might be related to the Aurora 7's experimental propulsion systems. Ma'am, what kind of aircraft would be capable of operating in those conditions? Dr. Carter's expression became more guarded. That's where your specific expertise becomes crucial, Lieutenant. The rescue mission will require an aircraft with capabilities that go beyond conventional military inventory. A new display activated, showing an aircraft that made Sam's breath catch in her throat. The Aurora 6 was clearly an evolution of the experimental technology she'd tested 2 years ago, but with refinements and capabilities that represented years of additional development. The aircraft's design incorporated lessons learned from the Aurora 4 testing program, with improved stability systems, enhanced propulsion efficiency, and flight characteristics that pushed even further into the realm of aerospace rather than pure aviation. Looking at the specifications, Sam realized that flying the Aurora 6 would require every skill she'd developed during her experimental testing, plus capabilities she'd only theorized about. The Aurora 6 is the only aircraft in our inventory capable of reaching the Aurora 7's location safely, Dr. Carter explained. But it requires a pilot with specific experience in Aurora-class flight characteristics, someone who understands the unique challenges of operating experimental propulsion systems in adverse conditions. Sam felt the familiar mixture of excitement and terror that came with the prospect of flying experimental aircraft. The Aurora 6 represented technologies that pushed the boundaries of what was possible, and operating it would require her to draw upon skills that she'd spent 2 years developing, and 3 years trying to forget. How long since the Aurora 7 went down? 14 hours. Captain Brennan and Major Hayes have emergency life support for approximately 36 more hours, but their injuries require medical attention that can't be provided remotely. Additionally, the classified nature of their technology means that every hour increases the risk of compromise. Dr. Carter activated a communication system that provided real-time updates from the Aurora 7's emergency beacon. The data showed that Lisa and her systems operator were conscious and stable, but their medical readings indicated injuries that would become life-threatening without proper treatment. The mission profile is straightforward in concept but complex. In execution, Dr. Carter continued, fly the Aurora 6 to the crash site, extract the crew, and return to base. However, the weather conditions, the electromagnetic interference, and the experimental nature of both aircraft create variables that conventional mission planning can't address. Sam absorbed the information, her mind automatically running through the flight calculations and risk assessments that Aurora-class missions required. The combination of weather, distance, and experimental technology created a mission profile that would challenge even the most experienced test pilots. Ma'am, I haven't flown an Aurora-class aircraft in 3 years. My qualifications may be technically current, but the practical experience gap is significant. Dr. Carter smiled with the kind of confidence that suggested she'd anticipated this. Concern. Lieutenant, you're about to discover that Aurora-class skills don't deteriorate the way conventional flight skills do. The neural pathways and reflexive responses that Aurora testing develops tend to be permanent once established. She activated another display showing neurological studies that had been conducted on Aurora program graduates. The data indicated that pilots who'd successfully completed Aurora testing retained their specialized capabilities even after extended periods without practice, suggesting that the training created fundamental changes in how the brain processed flight information. Additionally, the Aurora 6 incorporates artificial intelligence systems that can compensate for gaps in pilot experience. The aircraft's computer systems were programmed using data from your Aurora 4 test flights, so in many ways, the machine is already calibrated to your specific flight style and decision-making patterns. The implications of this statement hit Sam with startling force. Not only had her test flights been used to develop more advanced aircraft, but those aircraft had been specifically designed to interface with pilots who flew like she did. Aurora 6 wasn't just an experimental aircraft. It was a machine that had been built around her capabilities. The mission launch window opens in 6 hours, Dr. Carter said. That gives us time for a compressed requalification sequence and mission. Briefing. The Aurora 6 is already being prepared in Hangar 51, and our technical team is standing by to begin your refresher training. Sam felt the familiar sensation of standing at the edge of a decision that would change everything. Accepting this mission meant stepping back into a world of experimental aviation that officially didn't exist, using skills that she wasn't supposed to possess, and risking her life to save people who operated in the shadows of military aviation. But Lisa Brennan was out there, injured and stranded, depending on someone with the specialized knowledge to reach her. And Major Hayes, a systems operator she'd never met, but who dedicated his career to advancing American aviation technology, was counting on a rescue that only experimental capabilities could provide. Dr. Carter, if I accept this mission and something goes wrong, what happens to my official military career? The question hung in the air between them, highlighting the fundamental tension between official military service and participation in programs that existed outside normal chains of command. Lieutenant, if this mission succeeds, it will never appear in your official service record. If it fails, you'll be posthumously credited with a training accident during routine flight operations. Either way, your participation in Aurora programs will remain classified. Sam understood the implications. Success would mean returning to her conventional military career, with no official recognition for what she'd accomplished. Failure would mean that her real contribution to American aviation would die with her, buried in classification levels that most people would never know existed. But somewhere in the Pacific, 2 Americans who dedicated their lives to advancing experimental aviation technology were counting on someone with the knowledge and skills to bring them home. Ma'am, I need to ask one question before I commit to this mission. Dr. Carter nodded, recognizing the weight of the decision Sam was facing. The Aurora program was officially terminated 3 years ago. How many other pilots from that program are still available for missions like this? Dr. Carter's expression became more somber. Lieutenant, you're the only Aurora qualified pilot currently available for immediate deployment. The others are either assigned to positions where they can't be extracted quickly, or they're involved in other classified projects that prevent their participation. The answer confirmed what Sam had suspected. She wasn't just being asked to participate in a rescue mission. She was being asked to be the rescue mission. If she declined, Lisa Brennan and Major Hayes would remain stranded until conventional forces could develop an alternative plan that might or might not be successful. How long do I have to decide? The mission window is non-negotiable due to weather conditions and the limited life support aboard the Aurora 7. I need your answer. Now, Lieutenant. Sam looked at the displays showing the Aurora 6 specifications, the weather data from the crash site, and the medical information indicating that Lisa and her systems operator had less than 36 hours before their situation became critical. 3 years ago, she'd been the youngest pilot ever to master Aurora-class aircraft. Today, she was just another junior officer that experienced pilots didn't consider ready for serious missions. But Lisa Brennan was counting on her, and sometimes that was the only thing that mattered. Dr. Carter, I accept the mission. Dr. Carter led Sam through a series of corridors that didn't appear on any base map, past security checkpoints that required biometric scans and clearance levels that most military personnel would never encounter. They were heading toward Hangar 51, a facility that officially didn't exist, but housed some of the most advanced aircraft ever built. The walk gave Sam time to process what she'd just committed to. 3 years of trying to blend into conventional military service were about to end, replaced by a return to the world of experimental aviation that had shaped her in ways that regular pilot training never could dot as they approached the final security checkpoint. Dr. Carter handed Sam a tablet containing mission-specific clearance codes. These authorizations will give you access to areas and information that go beyond your current clearance level. They're temporary and mission-specific, but while they're active, you'll have authority that supersedes normal command structures. Implications were staggering. Sam was about to receive access to classified programs that some colonels and generals weren't cleared to know about. The responsibility was both thrilling and terrifying. The security scanner at Hangar 51 read Sam's enhanced clearances and immediately changed her status in the base's computer systems. Suddenly, she wasn't just Second Lieutenant Mitchell, Jr., officer and academy graduate. She was an Aurora 6 mission pilot, with access codes that opened doors throughout the most classified sections of Nellis Air Force Base. Hangar 51 was unlike any aircraft facility Sam had ever seen. The space was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into shadows and work areas that were equipped with technology that seemed decades ahead of standard military equipment. But what dominated the hangar was the aircraft itself. The Aurora 6 sat in the center of the space like a sculpture from the future. Its design was clearly evolved from the Aurora 4 that Sam had flown 3 years ago, but every line and curve had been refined to push the boundaries of aerodynamic efficiency. The aircraft's surface seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and its proportions suggested capabilities that went far beyond conventional aviation. Chief Master Sergeant Patricia Williams approached them with the confident stride of someone who'd spent 30 years working on aircraft that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Her gray hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, but her eyes held the kind of knowledge that came from maintaining experimental technology that most people couldn't even comprehend. Dr. Carter, Lieutenant Mitchell, Williams said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who understood these aircraft better than the engineers who designed them. The Aurora 6 is prepared for your requalification flight. All systems are nominal, and we've loaded the mission-specific navigation and communication packages." Sam stared at the aircraft, feeling a mixture of anticipation and apprehension that she remembered from her first Aurora test flights. The Aurora 6 was beautiful in the way that only truly advanced technology could be, but she knew that beauty concealed complexity that would challenge every skill she possessed. "Chief Williams," Sam said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was seeing. "How similar are the Aurora 6's flight characteristics to the Aurora 4? Williams smiled with the kind of expression that suggested she'd worked with Aurora pilots long enough to understand their concerns. "Lieutenant, the basic principles are the same, but everything has been refined and enhanced. The Aurora 6 is more responsive, more capable, and more forgiving than anything you've flown before. But it's also more demanding in terms of pilot skill and decision-making." Dr. Carter activated a briefing system that displayed technical specifications around the hangar's walls. The Aurora 6's capabilities were impressive even by experimental standards: maximum altitude approaching the edge of space, speed capabilities that approached hypersonic flight, and range that could cover most of the Pacific Ocean without refueling. "The mission profile requires operating at the edge of the Aurora 6's performance envelope," Dr. Carter explained. "The weather conditions at the crash site will challenge both the aircraft systems and your piloting skills. Additionally, the electromagnetic interference means that some navigation and communication systems will be unreliable." Sam studied the technical data, her mind automatically calculating flight paths and performance requirements. The mission would require everything the Aurora 6 was capable of, plus piloting skills that went beyond what most experimental test pilots ever developed. A new voice interrupted her analysis. "Lieutenant Mitchell?" Sam turned to see Colonel Marcus Thompson approaching with the measured stride of a senior officer who carried significant authority. Thompson was older than most. Active pilots with silver hair and a kind of command presence that suggested years of experience with classified operations. "Colonel," Sam replied, snapping to attention despite the unusual circumstances. Thompson studied her for a moment, his expression revealing the same mixture of skepticism and curiosity that Sam had encountered from other senior officers. But there was something else in his assessment, a consideration that suggested he was seeing her differently than most people did. "I've been reviewing your Aurora 4 test records," Thompson said. "Impressive performance metrics, especially considering your age when those flights were conducted. But test flying and operational missions are very different challenges." The statement carried an implicit question about whether Sam was ready for the kind of mission that could have strategic implications for American aviation programs. "Sir, I understand the distinction. The Aurora 4 testing was conducted under controlled conditions with extensive support systems. This mission will require adapting to variables that can't be predicted or controlled." Thompson's expression shifted slightly, suggesting that her answer had demonstrated an understanding of operational complexity that many test pilots never developed. "Dr. Carter tells me that you're the only Aurora qualified pilot available for immediate deployment. That puts significant pressure on both you and the mission's success probability." Sam felt the weight of that responsibility settling on her shoulders like a physical burden. If she failed, Lisa Brennan and Major Hayes would remain stranded. If the mission compromised the Aurora 6 or its classified technology, years of experimental development could be lost. "Sir, I'm aware of the stakes. But Captain Brennan is counting on someone with Aurora experience to reach her, and I'm not willing to let her down." Thompson studied Sam for another moment, then made a decision that would change everything. "Chief Williams, expedite the requalification sequence. I want Lieutenant Mitchell airborne within 3 hours." The authorization carried the weight of full command approval, instantly elevating Sam's status from someone asking for permission to someone with official backing for the mission. Williams nodded immediately. "Yes, sir." Lieutenant Mitchell, if you'll follow me, we'll begin with the Aurora 6 systems orientation. As they walked toward the aircraft, Sam noticed that the hangar's atmosphere had changed. The technicians and support personnel who'd been working around the Aurora 6 were now focusing their attention on her with the kind of respect usually reserved for experienced test pilots and senior officers. Word was spreading through the classified sections of Nellis that someone with Aurora credentials was preparing for an operational mission. People who understood experimental aviation were beginning to realize that they were witnessing something significant. Dr. Carter caught up with them as they reached the Aurora 6's boarding ladder. Lieutenant, I need to brief you on one additional aspect of this mission. The Aurora 7's crash site is in an area where several international powers conduct their own experimental aviation programs. There's a possibility that other parties may attempt to reach the crash site for intelligence gathering purposes. The implication was clear. This wasn't just a rescue mission. It was a race to prevent American experimental technology from falling into foreign hands. Ma'am, what are the rules of engagement if we encounter other aircraft in the area? The Aurora 6 is equipped with defensive systems appropriate for protecting classified technology. You'll have authorization to use whatever measures are necessary to ensure mission success and technology security. Sam absorbed this information, understanding that she might be flying into a situation that went beyond rescue operations into potential aerial combat, involving experimental aircraft and classified technologies. Chief Williams began the Aurora 6 systems walkthrough with the thoroughness of someone who understood that pilot preparation could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. The aircraft's cockpit was a marvel of advanced technology, with displays and controls that seemed to anticipate pilot needs rather than simply respond to pilot inputs. The Aurora 6's artificial intelligence systems are programmed to recognize Aurora 4 flight patterns, Williams explained. The computer will adapt to your specific piloting style and can provide recommendations for optimizing performance in conditions similar to those you'll encounter. Sam settled into the pilot's seat, feeling the aircraft systems automatically adjust to her physical dimensions and flight preferences. The Aurora 6 seemed to recognize her, its displays activating with configurations that matched her previous Aurora experience. As the requalification sequence began, word of the mission was spreading through the classified sections of Nellis Air Force Base. Personnel who understood experimental aviation were beginning to gather around Hangar 51, drawn by the knowledge that they were about to witness something that rarely happened in the world of classified operations. Colonel Thompson returned to the hangar, accompanied by General Patricia Rodriguez, the commanding officer responsible for all experimental aviation programs at Nellis. Rodriguez was a legend in the experimental aviation community, with a career that included test-flying aircraft that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Colonel Thompson tells me we have an Aurora pilot preparing for an operational mission, Rodriguez said, studying Sam through the Aurora 6's cockpit windows. How confident are you in her capabilities? Thompson's response carried the weight of professional assessment based on classified performance records. General, her Aurora 4 test scores were exceptional, and her flight characteristics suggest adaptability that goes beyond normal test pilot capabilities. If anyone can successfully complete this mission, it's Lieutenant Mitchell. The endorsement from a senior colonel, delivered in front of base command staff, instantly changed Sam's status within the experimental aviation community. She was no longer just a junior officer asking for permission. She was an Aurora pilot, with official recognition of her capabilities. Dr. Carter monitored the requalification sequence from a control station that provided real-time data on both the Aurora 6's systems and Sam's performance metrics. The aircraft responded to Sam's inputs with the kind of precision that suggested a perfect match between pilot capabilities and machine performance. All systems are nominal, Dr. Carter announced. Lieutenant Mitchell, you're cleared for Aurora 6. Operational qualification. The announcement carried weight that went beyond simple mission approval. Sam had just been officially recognized as qualified to operate one of the most advanced aircraft ever built, with capabilities that existed nowhere else in the world. As she completed the final system checks, Sam noticed that personnel from throughout the base were finding reasons to pass. By Hangar 51, word had spread that something significant was happening, and people who understood experimental aviation wanted to witness it. General Rodriguez approached the Aurora 6 as Sam prepared for the mission launch sequence. Lieutenant Mitchell, you're about to undertake a mission that combines rescue operations with protection of some of our most classified aviation technologies. The success of this mission could have implications for American experimental aviation programs for years to come. The weight of those words settled on Sam like a mantle of responsibility that went far beyond personal achievement. She wasn't just rescuing Lisa Brennan and Major Hayes. She was protecting decades of experimental development and ensuring that American aviation technology remains secure. General, I understand the stakes. Captain Brennan is counting on me, and I won't let her down. Rodriguez smiled with the kind of expression that suggested she recognized something in Sam that went beyond technical qualifications. Lieutenant, good hunting. Bring our people home. The Aurora 6's engines came alive with a sound unlike anything in conventional aviation. Rather than the familiar roar of jet turbines, the experimental propulsion system produced a deep harmonic resonance that seemed to vibrate through the hangar's structure itself. Sam felt the aircraft system synchronizing with her neural patterns, the advanced interface technology recognizing her brainwave signatures from her Aurora 4 training. Aurora Control, this is Aurora 6 requesting clearance for mission departure. Sam spoke into the secure communication system, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to attempt. Aurora 6, you are cleared for immediate departure. Weather conditions at the target site are deteriorating rapidly. Your mission window is now compressed to 18 hours maximum before the storm system makes extraction impossible. The time pressure added another layer of complexity to an already dangerous mission. Sam would have to reach the crash site, locate Lisa Brennan and Major Hayes, perform the extraction, and return to base before the Pacific storm system made flight operations impossible. As the Aurora 6 moved toward the runway, Sam noticed that personnel throughout the base had gathered to watch her departure. Word had spread that something unprecedented was happening, and people who understood experimental aviation wanted to witness it. She could see Chief Williams monitoring from the control tower, Colonel Thompson coordinating with base operations, and General Rodriguez observing from the command center. The Aurora 6's takeoff was unlike anything Sam's previous flying experience. The experimental propulsion system didn't just lift the aircraft. It seemed to bend the relationship between the machine and gravity itself. Within seconds, she was climbing at angles that would be impossible for conventional aircraft, accelerating through altitude ranges that marked the transition from atmospheric flight to aerospace operations. At 30,000 feet, the Aurora 6's artificial intelligence systems activated fully, providing flight optimization recommendations based on Sam's Aurora 4 performance patterns. The aircraft was literally learning to fly like she did, adapting its responses to match her decision-making processes and flight preferences. Aurora 6, you are approaching restricted airspace. Be advised that satellite intelligence indicates unusual aircraft activity in your target area. Unknown aircraft types operating at high altitude with flight patterns suggesting reconnaissance rather than search and rescue. The warning confirmed Dr. Carter's concerns about international interest. In the Aurora 7 crash site, other powers were attempting to reach the downed experimental aircraft, probably hoping to recover technology that could advance their own aviation programs by Decades. Sam adjusted her flight path to approach the target area from an unexpected direction, using the Aurora 6's stealth capabilities to avoid detection by conventional radar systems. The aircraft's advanced materials and design characteristics made it nearly invisible to standard surveillance, but she knew that other experimental aircraft might have detection capabilities beyond normal military equipment. As she approached the Pacific crash zone, the weather conditions became increasingly challenging. The storm system that had grounded conventional rescue aircraft was massive, with electromagnetic interference that disrupted normal navigation systems and wind patterns that would challenge even the most experienced pilots. Aurora Control. I'm entering the interference zone now. Communications may become intermittent till I reach the target coordinates. Understood, Aurora 6. You are authorized to proceed independently. Good luck. The Aurora 6 plunged into the storm system like a dart piercing a wall of chaos. Lightning flashed around the aircraft with intensity that turned the cockpit into a strobing light show, while electromagnetic pulses interfered with some of the more sensitive instruments. But the Aurora 6's experimental systems were designed to operate in conditions that would disable conventional aircraft. Sam's training kicked in automatically, her hands moving across the controls with the fluid precision that came from years of operating experimental aircraft in challenging conditions. The Aurora 6 responded to her inputs like an extension of her own reflexes, its artificial intelligence systems compensating for atmospheric turbulence and electromagnetic interference. Through breaks in the storm clouds, Sam caught her first glimpse of the crash site. The Aurora 7 had gone down on a small volcanic island that didn't appear on standard navigation charts, part of a classified testing area where experimental aircraft conducted operations far from civilian observation. But what made Sam's blood run cold was the sight of another aircraft circling the island. The foreign aircraft was clearly experimental, with design characteristics that suggested stealth, technology and performance capabilities beyond conventional military equipment. It was conducting systematic reconnaissance patterns around the crash site, obviously attempting to locate the downed Aurora 7 and its classified technology. Aurora Control. This is Aurora 6. I have visual contact with unknown aircraft at the Kung target site, requesting guidance on rules of engagement. Static filled the communication channel for several seconds before a response came through. Aurora 6, you are authorized to protect classified technology by any means necessary. The Aurora 7's experimental systems cannot be allowed to fall into foreign hands. Sam understood the implications. She was being authorized to engage in aerial combat using experimental aircraft that officially didn't exist, in a conflict that would never be acknowledged by any government. The foreign aircraft detected her approach and immediately changed its flight pattern, moving to intercept her before she could reach the crash site. Sam could see that the other pilot was skilled, using advanced maneuvers that suggested extensive training in experimental aircraft operations. The aerial engagement that followed pushed both aircraft to the limits of their capabilities. The foreign pilot was good, using stealth technology and advanced weapon systems that made the encounter more like science fiction than conventional aerial combat. But Sam had advantages that came from her Aurora training and the Aurora 6's artificial intelligence systems. The Aurora 6's defensive systems activated automatically, deploying countermeasures that confused the foreign aircraft's targeting systems while providing Sam with tactical information about her opponent's capabilities and weaknesses. The engagement became a three-dimensional chess match conducted at hypersonic speeds, with both pilots using experimental technology that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in aerial combat. Sam's Aurora training proved decisive. Her experience with unconventional flight dynamics allowed her to use the Aurora 6's capabilities in ways that the foreign pilot couldn't anticipate or counter. She executed maneuvers that seemed to defy physics, using the aircraft's experimental propulsion. System to change direction and altitude in ways that conventional aircraft simply couldn't match. The foreign aircraft broke off its attack and retreated toward international waters, apparently deciding that the risk of continued engagement outweighed the potential intelligence value of the Aurora 7's technology. With the immediate threat neutralized, Sam turned her attention to the primary mission, rescuing Lisa Brennan and Major Hayes from the crashed Aurora 7. The volcanic island was small and rugged, with terrain that made conventional landing impossible. But the Aurora 6 was equipped with vertical takeoff and landing capabilities that allowed it to operate in conditions where regular aircraft would be helpless. Sam set the Aurora 6 down on a narrow ridge near the Aurora 7's crash site using piloting skills that combined precision flying with split-second decision-making. The landing was perfect, placing her within walking distance of the downed experimental aircraft. The Aurora 7 had crashed into a lava field that provided natural protection from the storm, but created challenges for extraction. The aircraft was damaged but largely intact, suggesting that Lisa and her systems operator had survived the initial impact. Sam approached the Aurora 7 with medical equipment and rescue gear, calling out to let the survivors know that help had arrived. The response came immediately, weak but unmistakably Lisa Brennan's voice. Sam Mitchell? I can't believe you actually came." Lisa was conscious but injured, with obvious trauma from the crash landing. Major Hayes was in worse condition, unconscious, with injuries that required immediate medical attention. Both needed evacuation to proper medical facilities as quickly as possible. "Lisa, we need to move fast. There are foreign aircraft in the area, and the weather window is closing. Can you walk?" "I think so, but Hayes is in bad shape. We're going to need to carry him." Sam assessed the situation quickly. Lisa could move under her own power, but would need assistance. Major Hayes required a stretcher to carry across rough terrain to reach the Aurora 6. The extraction would be physically demanding and time-consuming, with every minute increasing the risk that weather conditions would make departure impossible. Working together, Sam and Lisa managed to move Major Hayes to the Aurora 6, using emergency medical procedures that Sam had learned during her Aurora training. The Major was stable but needed advanced medical care that could only be provided at a fully equipped facility. As they prepared for departure, the storm system intensified, with wind conditions that challenged even the Aurora 6's advanced capabilities. Sam knew that takeoff would require every skill she possessed, using experimental flight techniques that pushed both her abilities and the aircraft's performance envelope. The Aurora 6 lifted off from the volcanic island in conditions that would have grounded any conventional aircraft. Sam used the experimental propulsion system's unique characteristics to compensate for wind shear and electromagnetic interference, climbing through the storm system with maneuvers that seemed to defy the laws of physics. As they cleared the worst of the weather, Lisa regained enough strength to speak. "Sam, how did you know how to find us? How did you get authorization to use an Aurora 6? "Long story, Lisa. The important thing is getting you and Hayes to medical facilities. We can catch up on everything else after you've recovered." But as the Aurora 6 raced back toward Nellis Air Force Base, Sam knew that this mission had changed everything. She successfully operated experimental aircraft in combat conditions, protected classified technology from foreign intelligence gathering, and rescued 2 Americans whose work was crucial to maintaining American superiority in experimental aviation. The young lieutenant who'd been dismissed as inexperienced just hours earlier had proven that she possessed capabilities that went far beyond conventional pilot training. She demonstrated that her Aurora skills were not just current but exceptional, and that she could be trusted with missions that had strategic implications for American aviation programs. Aurora Control, this is Aurora 6 returning to base with extracted personnel. Medical team should be standing by for immediate casualty treatment. Aurora 6, medical teams are prepared. General Rodriguez requests immediate debriefing upon your arrival. Outstanding work, Lieutenant. As the familiar landscape of Nevada appeared through the Aurora 6's windows, Sam realized that her life had changed irrevocably. She was no longer just another academy graduate trying to prove herself in conventional military service. She had become something much more significant, a pilot who could operate experimental aircraft in conditions that challenged the boundaries of what was possible. The mission had proven that some people possessed capabilities that went beyond normal human limitations, and that in the right circumstances, those capabilities could make the difference between success and failure in operations that affected national security. Sam had kept her promise to Lisa Brennan, but more importantly, she had proven to herself and others that she belonged in the world of experimental aviation, where her unique skills could make a real difference in protecting American interests and advancing human knowledge about the possibilities of flight. As the Aurora 6 approached Nellis Air Force Base, Sam's secure communication system erupted with urgent transmissions that made her blood run cold. The foreign aircraft she'd encountered at the crash site hadn't been acting alone. It had been part of a coordinated intelligence operation that was far more extensive than anyone had realized. Aurora 6, this is General Rodriguez. We have a developing situation. Satellite intelligence indicates multiple foreign aircraft converging on your position. They're attempting to intercept you before you can return to base with the classified technology. Sam's tactical display immediately updated with tracking information showing 5 experimental aircraft approaching from different vectors. Their flight pattern suggesting a coordinated effort to force her down over international waters, where they could recover both the Aurora 6 and any intelligence gathered from the Aurora 7 crash site. General, what are my options? I have injured personnel aboard who need immediate medical attention. Lieutenant, the medical teams are standing by, but first you need to evade the intercept attempt. The Aurora 6 is equipped with defensive systems that go beyond what you used earlier. You're about to discover capabilities that even you don't know about. Dr. Carter's voice joined the communication channel with technical information that revealed the true extent of the Aurora 6's advanced systems. Sam, the aircraft's artificial intelligence has been monitoring the tactical situation and has prepared recommendations for evading multiple hostile aircraft. Accept the AIS guidance and trust the systems we've built. The Aurora 6's cockpit displays transformed, showing tactical information and flight recommendations that seem to anticipate the foreign aircraft's movements before they happened. The artificial intelligence wasn't just providing navigation assistance. It was conducting real-time analysis of enemy capabilities and developing countermeasures that leverage the Aurora 6's experimental technology. Lisa, I need you to monitor Hayes' medical condition while I deal with this situation. Things are about to get very intense. Lisa Brennan, despite her own injuries, moved to check on Major Hayes' vital signs. He's stable but unconscious. Sam, what's happening out there? Multiple foreign aircraft trying to intercept us. They want the Aurora technology we're carrying, and they're willing to force us down to get it. The first foreign aircraft appeared on Sam's visual display, approaching at high speed with aggressive maneuvering that suggested the pilot was experienced in experimental aircraft operations. But this time, Sam had advantages beyond her piloting skills. She had the Aurora 6's full defensive capabilities and artificial intelligence support. The engagement that followed was unlike anything in the history of aerial combat. The Aurora 6's AI systems provided tactical recommendations that seemed to anticipate enemy actions, while its experimental defensive technology created electronic countermeasures that confused hostile targeting systems. Sam found herself flying maneuvers that pushed beyond the boundaries of what she'd thought possible, using the Aurora 6's capabilities in ways that combined human intuition with artificial intelligence analysis. The aircraft responded to her thoughts as much as her physical inputs, creating a symbiotic relationship between pilot and machine that enabled performance levels that neither could achieve alone. The foreign pilots were skilled, but they were operating independently, while Sam had the advantage of integrated AI support that coordinated her defensive actions with real-time analysis of multiple threats. The Aurora 6 seemed to dance through the hostile formation, avoiding weapon systems while maintaining course toward Nellis. Aurora 6, you have 2 more aircraft approaching from your 6 o'clock. They're attempting to box you in for a coordinated attack. Sam's response was to execute a maneuver that the Aurora 6's designers had only theorized about. Using the experimental propulsion system's unique characteristics, she performed a vertical climb that transitioned into suborbital flight, taking the aircraft beyond the operational ceiling of conventional interceptors. The foreign aircraft couldn't follow her into near-space conditions, but Sam knew that her fuel consumption at those altitudes would limit how long she could maintain the advantage. She needed to use the high-altitude position to break through the hostile formation and reach the safety of American airspace. General Rodriguez, I'm going to attempt a high-speed descent through the hostile formation. If this works, I'll be at Nellis in 20 minutes. If it doesn't work, Lieutenant, we have every confidence in your abilities. The Aurora 6 was built for exactly this kind of situation, and you're the pilot best qualified to use its capabilities. The descent from suborbital altitude was like riding a controlled meteorite. Sam used the Aurora 6's experimental systems to manage heat buildup and structural stress while maintaining precise control through atmospheric layers that created turbulence beyond anything in normal aviation. As she plunged through the hostile formation at hypersonic speeds, the foreign aircraft found themselves unable to track or intercept a target moving faster than their weapon systems could calculate. The Aurora 6 passed through their formation like a ghost, leaving them scrambling to reposition for pursuit that was already hopeless. But the high-energy maneuvers had pushed both Sam and the Aurora 6 to their absolute limits. The aircraft's systems were operating at maximum capacity, and Sam was experiencing G-forces that tested the boundaries of human endurance. The artificial intelligence was providing life support assistance that kept her conscious and functional, but she knew that she couldn't maintain this performance level much longer. Aurora Control, I'm 5 minutes out from base. Medical teams need to be ready for immediate casualty treatment. Hayes is unconscious, and Brennan has multiple injuries. Medical teams are standing by, Aurora 6. You're cleared for emergency landing on runway 33. All other traffic has been diverted. As Nellis Air Force Base appeared on the horizon, Sam realized that she was about to complete a mission that had challenged every skill she possessed and pushed experimental aircraft technology to its absolute limits. She'd engaged multiple foreign aircraft in aerial combat, protected classified technology from intelligence gathering operations, and successfully extracted 2 Americans from a crash site that conventional rescue couldn't reach. The Aurora 6's landing was flawless despite the stress the aircraft had endured during the mission. Sam used the experimental system's precision control to set down exactly where the medical teams were waiting, minimizing the time required to transfer Lisa Brennan and Major Hayes to proper medical care. As the engine spun down, Sam remained in the cockpit for a moment, feeling the profound exhaustion that came from operating at the edge of human capability for extended periods. The mission had required everything she'd learned about experimental aviation, plus skills she'd discovered she possessed only when facing impossible circumstances. Emergency medical personnel immediately took charge of Major Hayes, whose condition required immediate surgery, but who was stable thanks to the medical care Sam had provided during the extraction. Lisa Brennan was conscious and alert, her injuries serious but not life-threatening. As Lisa was being prepared for transport to the medical facility, she caught Sam's arm. "What you did out there, I've never seen anyone fly like that." The Aurora 6 responded to you like it was reading your mind. The aircraft's AI systems were calibrated using my Aurora 4 flight data, Sam explained. In some ways, the machine was designed to fly the way I think. No, Sam, that was more than artificial intelligence. That was something that goes beyond normal pilot training. You've developed capabilities that I didn't think were possible. Dr. Carter approached as the medical teams departed with the rescued personnel. Lieutenant Mitchell, your performance during this mission exceeded every projection we made about Aurora 6 capabilities. The flight data shows maneuvers and performance levels that pushed beyond the aircraft's theoretical limitations. Sam was still processing what she'd accomplished. Dr. Carter, how is that possible? I followed the AI recommendations and used the systems you provided. Artificial intelligence can only recommend actions based on programmed parameters. What you did was use human intuition and adaptability to push beyond those parameters. You found capabilities in both yourself and the aircraft that we didn't know existed. General Rodriguez arrived at the landing area with an expression that combined relief, admiration, and something that looked like awe. Lieutenant, the intelligence community is very interested in how you managed to evade and outmaneuver 5 experimental aircraft operating in coordinated formation. That kind of performance suggests pilot capabilities that go beyond current understanding of human limitations. The implication was staggering. Sam had not only successfully completed an impossible mission, she demonstrated abilities that expanded the understanding of what was possible in experimental aviation. General, I'm not sure I can explain what happened out there. The Aurora 6's systems seemed to anticipate what I needed, and I found myself making decisions that I didn't consciously plan. Lieutenant, what you've described sounds like the kind of pilot-machine integration that we've theorized about, but never seen in practice. The Aurora 6 was designed to interface with exceptional pilots, but your performance suggests that the relationship goes beyond simple human-machine cooperation. As they walked toward the debriefing facility, Sam realized that the mission had changed more than just her military career. She'd discovered capabilities within herself that she hadn't known existed, and she'd demonstrated that experimental aviation technology could achieve performance levels that previous testing had suggested were impossible. The young lieutenant, who'd been dismissed as inexperienced just days earlier, had become something unprecedented. A pilot who could interface with experimental aircraft in ways that pushed the boundaries of both human capability and machine performance. Colonel Thompson joined them as they entered the secure debriefing facility. Lieutenant Mitchell, the mission data shows that you achieved flight performance metrics that exceed anything in our database. The combination of your piloting skills and the Aurora 6's artificial intelligence created capabilities that neither component could achieve independently. Sam was beginning to understand that she'd participated in something that went beyond a simple rescue mission. She demonstrated a new form of aviation that combined human intuition with artificial intelligence in ways that created unprecedented performance capabilities. Sir, what does this mean for future Aurora operations? Lieutenant, it means that you've proven the viability of concepts that were previously theoretical. The pilot AI integration that you achieved today could revolutionize experimental aviation and provide American forces with capabilities that our adversaries can't match. As the initial debriefing began, Sam realized that her demonstration of exceptional pilot capabilities had implications that extended far beyond her personal military career. She'd proven that human AI integration could create aviation performance that exceeded the sum of its components, opening possibilities for experimental aircraft development that could maintain American superiority in aerospace technology for decades to come. The mission had tested everything Sam thought she knew about flying, about herself, and about the possibilities of experimental aviation. She'd passed that test in ways that exceeded everyone's expectations, including her own. The secure debriefing room at Nellis Air Force Base had been designed for discussing operations that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in military aviation. But as Sam sat across from a panel of senior officers, intelligence analysts, and experimental aviation specialists, she realized that today's mission had exceeded even those extraordinary parameters. Dr. Carter activated a holographic display system that showed three-dimensional flight path analysis of Sam's entire mission. The data visualization looked more like abstract art than conventional flight patterns, with maneuvers that seemed to defy the basic principles of aerodynamics and propulsion. "Lieutenant Mitchell," began Admiral Sarah Chun, the Pentagon senior advisor on experimental aviation programs, "the flight data from your mission shows performance characteristics that our best computer models indicated were impossible. You achieved G-force tolerances that exceed human physiological limitations, executed maneuvers that pushed the Aurora 6 beyond its design specifications, and demonstrated pilot AI integration that represents a quantum leap in aviation capability." Sam studied the holographic display, seeing her own flight patterns from an external perspective for the first time. The three-dimensional maneuvers she'd executed during the aerial engagement looked like the work of someone with superhuman reflexes and spatial awareness that went beyond normal human capability. "Ma'am, I'm not sure I can explain what happened during the mission. The Aurora 6's system seemed to anticipate my intentions, and I found myself capable of maneuvers that I didn't think I could perform." General Rodriguez leaned forward, her expression serious. "Lieutenant, the implications of what you've accomplished extend far beyond this single mission. The pilot AI integration you achieved suggests possibilities for experimental aviation that could revolutionize American aerospace capabilities." But there was something in the general's tone that suggested the conversation was about to take a direction that Sam wasn't prepared for. Dr. Marcus Webb, a specialist in human performance enhancement from a classified research facility, consulted a tablet containing medical data that had been collected during Sam's flight. "Lieutenant, the physiological monitoring systems in the Aurora 6 recorded biological functions that indicate you were operating in states that we previously thought were impossible for unaugmented humans." The word "unaugmented" hung in the air, with implications that made Sam uncomfortable. She was beginning to understand that her exceptional performance was raising questions about whether her capabilities were entirely natural. "Sir, I don't understand what you're suggesting." Webb exchanged glances with Dr. Carter before continuing. "The Aurora program has always pushed the boundaries of human capability, but your performance suggests that you may have developed physiological adaptations that go beyond normal training benefits. We need to understand whether your exceptional abilities are the result of natural talent, advanced training, or something else entirely." The medical examination that followed was unlike anything Sam had experienced during her military service. Advanced scanning equipment analyzed her brain structure, nervous system function, and physiological responses with technology that existed nowhere outside of classified research facilities. The results were extraordinary and deeply troubling. "Lieutenant Mitchell," Dr. Webb said as he reviewed the test data, "your neurological patterns show modifications that are consistent with exposure to experimental enhancement technologies. Your brain structure includes developments that we've only seen in theoretical research on human AI interface optimization." Sam felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning in the medical facility. "Sir, are you saying that someone modified my brain without my knowledge?" The silence that followed her question was answered enough. Dr. Carter finally spoke, her voice carrying the weight of classified knowledge that she'd hoped never to reveal. "The Aurora program included experimental components that participants weren't fully informed about. The pilot AI integration capabilities that you demonstrated today were achieved through neurological modifications that were implemented during your original training. The betrayal was staggering. Sam realized that her exceptional performance hadn't been the result of natural talent or superior training. It had been the product of unauthorized medical experimentation that had modified her brain to interface with artificial intelligence systems. Dr. Carter, are you telling me that my capabilities are artificial? That everything I've accomplished has been the result of unauthorized human experimentation? General Rodriguez intervened before Dr. Carter could respond. Lieutenant, the modifications enhanced capabilities that you already possessed. Your natural talent and dedication made the enhancements possible, but the enhancements made your exceptional performance achievable. But Sam was focused on a more immediate concern. What are the long-term effects of these modifications? What's going to happen to me? The medical data that Dr. Webb displayed was both fascinating and terrifying. Sam's brain showed adaptations that enabled direct interface with AI systems, but the long-term consequences were unknown because no one had ever achieved her level of integration before. Lieutenant, the neurological modifications appear to be stable and beneficial, but we're operating in uncharted territory. You're the first person to achieve full pilot AI integration, and we don't have data on what that means for your future health or capabilities. As the implications sank in, Sam realized that her exceptional mission performance had come at a cost that she was only beginning to understand. She had become something unprecedented in human aviation, a pilot whose brain had been modified to interface directly with artificial intelligence systems. But the consequences extended beyond her personal situation. The success of the mission had demonstrated capabilities that foreign intelligence services would desperately want to understand and replicate. Admiral Chun presented intelligence reports that showed international interest in Sam's performance had reached the highest levels of several foreign governments. Lieutenant, satellite intelligence indicates that multiple nations are attempting to analyze your flight patterns and performance characteristics. Your capabilities represent a strategic advantage that our adversaries will try to neutralize or duplicate. The security implications were staggering. Sam had become a walking repository of experimental technology that could determine the future balance of aerospace power between nations. Ma'am, what does this mean for my safety and my military career? Lieutenant, your exceptional capabilities make you simultaneously one of our most valuable assets and one of our most significant security risks. We need to develop protocols for protecting both you and the classified technologies you represent. Dr. Carter activated a new display showing proposed modifications to Sam's military status and living arrangements. The changes were comprehensive and restrictive, designed to protect her from foreign intelligence operations while maintaining her availability for future experimental missions. Sam, we're recommending that you be assigned to a classified facility where you can continue developing your pilot AI integration capabilities while remaining secure from foreign intelligence gathering. This would mean leaving conventional military service and transitioning to a completely classified career path. The choice was stark: accept a life of complete secrecy and continued experimental participation, or risk foreign intelligence operations that could compromise both her safety and American aerospace superiority. As Sam considered her options, Lisa Brennan was wheeled into the debriefing room in a medical transport chair. Despite her injuries, Lisa had insisted on participating in discussions about Sam's future because she understood the implications better than anyone else. Sam, Lisa said, her voice weak but determined, what you've accomplished represents decades of advancement in experimental aviation. But the people in this room need to understand that your capabilities go beyond the neurological modifications they've documented. Lisa's statement surprised everyone in the room, including Sam herself. What do you mean, Lisa? During the Aurora 4 testing, I monitored pilots who had similar modifications, but none of them achieved anything close to your performance levels. The enhancements may have made your capabilities possible, but your natural talent and determination made them exceptional. Lisa's assessment provided a different perspective on Sam's situation. Rather than being simply the product of unauthorized experimentation, she represented a unique combination of natural ability, artificial enhancement, and personal dedication that had created unprecedented capabilities. General Rodriguez made a decision that would determine Sam's future. Lieutenant Mitchell, based on your exceptional performance and the strategic value of your capabilities, we're offering you a choice. You can return to conventional military service with enhanced security protection, or you can join a new experimental program that will develop pilot AI integration for the next generation of Aurora aircraft. The new program represented an opportunity to advance experimental aviation while maintaining some control over her own career path. But it also meant accepting that her life would be permanently connected to classified operations that existed outside normal military structures. General, if I join the new program, what happens to the other pilots who might undergo similar modifications? Lieutenant, your performance has demonstrated that pilot AI integration is viable, but we've also learned that the combination of natural talent and artificial enhancement is extremely rare. Future Aurora pilots will be selected and trained based on criteria that your mission has helped us develop. Sam realized that her exceptional performance had implications that extended far beyond her personal military career. She had become the proof of concept for technologies that could determine American aerospace superiority for decades to come. The choice she made would affect not only her own future, but the development of experimental aviation programs that could protect American interests in an increasingly complex international environment. As the debriefing concluded, Sam was given 24 hours to make her decision. She could return to conventional military service with the knowledge that she possessed capabilities that would always make her a target for foreign intelligence operations. Or she could embrace her role as a pioneer in pilot AI integration and help develop technologies that could revolutionize American aerospace capabilities. Walking through the corridors of Nellis Air Force Base that evening, Sam reflected on how dramatically her life had changed in just a few days. She'd gone from being dismissed as an inexperienced junior officer to becoming the first person to achieve full pilot AI integration with experimental aircraft. But the success had come with costs that she was still trying to understand. Her brain had been modified without her full knowledge. Her capabilities made her a permanent security risk, and her future would be shaped by considerations that went far beyond normal military career planning. As she passed the hangar where conventional aircraft were maintained by personnel who had no knowledge of experimental programs, Sam realized that she could never return to the simple world of standard military aviation. She had seen too much, accomplished too much, and become too valuable to ever be just another pilot again. The young lieutenant who had been underestimated and dismissed had become someone whose capabilities could determine the future of American experimental aviation. Tomorrow she would decide whether to embrace that responsibility or try to return to a conventional life that might no longer be possible. Either way, her demonstration of exceptional pilot AI integration had proven that human potential could be enhanced in ways that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in experimental aviation. She had become living proof that the future of aerospace technology would be determined by the successful integration of human capability and artificial intelligence. Dawn broke over Nellis Air Force Base with the same relentless Nevada sun that had witnessed Sam's dismissal just 5 days earlier. But everything else had changed in ways that would have been impossible to imagine. The young lieutenant who had been turned away from a routine briefing was now sitting in the Pentagon's most classified conference room, facing a decision that would shape the future of American experimental aviation. Secretary of Defense Margaret Harrison entered the room with the measured authority of someone who made decisions affecting global security. She was accompanied by officials whose names didn't appear in public directories, but whose influence shaped policies that protected American interests in ways the public would never know. Lieutenant Mitchell, Secretary Harrison began, your performance during the Aurora 6 mission has created both opportunities and challenges that extend far beyond military aviation. The capabilities you've demonstrated have strategic implications that we're still trying to fully understand. Sam had spent the night reviewing classified reports about international reactions to her mission. Intelligence agencies from at least 6 nations were attempting to analyze flight data, recruit personnel with knowledge of her capabilities, and develop countermeasures for technologies they couldn't comprehend. Ma'am, I understand that my performance has created security concerns, but I need to know what's being asked of me before I can make an informed decision about my future. Dr. Alunga Vasquez, the Pentagon's Director of Advanced Human Performance Research, activated a secure display system that showed the scope of programs that Sam's success had made possible. The scale was breathtaking. Research facilities, aircraft development programs, and training protocols that would revolutionize American aerospace capabilities. Lieutenant, your pilot AI integration has proven that human cognitive enhancement can create performance levels that exceed anything our adversaries possess. We're proposing the establishment of a new program that would train and deploy pilots with similar capabilities. The Aurora 7 program would be unlike anything in military history. Selected pilots would undergo neurological enhancement procedures that would enable direct interface with AI systems, creating human-machine integration that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in aerospace operations. Dr. Vasquez, you're talking about creating more pilots like me. But what about the ethical considerations of neurological modification without full informed consent? The question highlighted the fundamental tension between advancing American capabilities and maintaining ethical standards in human experimentation. General Rodriguez provided context that made the stakes clear. Lieutenant, intelligence reports indicate that foreign powers are developing their own pilot enhancement programs based on analysis of your performance. If we don't advance our capabilities, we risk losing aerospace superiority to nations that have fewer ethical constraints. The geopolitical implications were staggering. Sam's demonstration of pilot AI integration had triggered an international race to develop enhanced human capabilities that could determine the balance of power for decades to come. Secretary Harrison presented the formal proposal with the weight of national security authorization. Lieutenant Mitchell, we're offering you the position of Director of Human AI Integration for the Aurora 7 program. You would be responsible for developing training protocols, selecting candidates, and ensuring that enhancement procedures meet both effectiveness and ethical standards. The position would make Sam one of the most influential people in experimental aviation, with authority to shape how human enhancement technologies were developed and implemented. But it would also mean accepting permanent responsibility for programs that push the boundaries of human modification. Ma'am, if I accept this position, what happens to my identity as a conventional military officer? Lieutenant, your official military record will show assignment to classified research and development. Your actual work will exist in compartmented programs that operate outside normal military structures. Essentially, you'll become part of an organization that officially doesn't exist. The transformation would be complete. Sam would transition from conventional military service to a classified world, where her capabilities could be fully utilized, but where her existence would be hidden from public knowledge. As Sam considered the proposal, her secure communication device activated with an encrypted message from Lisa Brennan, who was recovering from her injuries at a classified medical facility. Sam, I've been briefed on the Aurora 7 program proposal. I want you to know that what you accomplished during our rescue mission proved that human potential can be enhanced without losing our humanity. If you take this position, you'll have the opportunity to ensure that future pilots are treated with the respect and ethical consideration that we deserved during our original training. Lisa's message provided perspective that helped Sam understand the broader implications of her decision. The Aurora 7 program could be developed with ethical standards that protected enhanced pilots while advancing American capabilities. Dr. Carter joined the discussion with technical information about the proposed program's scope and safeguards. Sam, the Aurora 7 program would incorporate lessons learned from your experience. Enhancement procedures would be voluntary, reversible, and conducted with full informed consent. Additionally, enhanced pilots would have control over their career paths and the level of their participation in classified operations. The ethical improvements addressed many of Sam's concerns about human experimentation, but they also highlighted how much her own experience had differed from proposed standards. Dr. Carter, what about pilots who were enhanced under previous protocols? Will there be efforts to address the ethical violations of earlier programs? Sam, part of your responsibility as Aurora 7 director would be advocating for pilots who participated in earlier experimental programs. You'd have authority to ensure that their contributions are recognized and that they receive appropriate medical monitoring and support. The position would give Sam the power to protect other enhanced pilots while advancing technologies that could maintain American aerospace superiority. Admiral Chun provided intelligence analysis that emphasized the urgency of the program's development. Lieutenant, foreign enhancement programs are progressing rapidly. Our window for maintaining technological advantage is measured in months, not years. The Aurora 7 program needs to be operational quickly, but it also needs to be developed correctly. As the briefing concluded, Sam realized that her decision would affect not only her own future, but the development of human enhancement technologies that could determine American security for generations. She walked through the Pentagon's corridors, passing offices where officials made decisions affecting global affairs, knowing that she was about to make a choice that would place her among the people who shaped America's most classified capabilities. That evening, Sam returned to Nellis Air Force Base for a final conversation with the personnel who had witnessed her transformation from dismissed cadet to experimental aviation pioneer. Chief Master Sergeant Williams met her in Hangar 51, where the Aurora 6 sat like a monument to technological achievement and human potential. Lieutenant, word is that you're being offered the chance to run the next generation of Aurora programs. That's a hell of a responsibility for someone who was just another cadet a week ago. Sam studied the Aurora 6, remembering the sensation of achieving perfect pilot AI integration during the most challenging mission of her life. Chief, when I first saw this aircraft, I thought it was just another experimental project. But flying it taught me that human capabilities can be enhanced in ways that expand what's possible for our entire species. Williams nodded with the understanding of someone who'd spent decades working with experimental technology. Lieutenant, the pilots I've seen who make the biggest difference aren't the ones who follow conventional procedures. They're the ones who push boundaries and discover capabilities that nobody knew existed. Colonel Thompson joined them in the hangar, carrying orders that would formalize Sam's transition to her new role. Lieutenant Mitchell, your performance during the Aurora 6 mission has been classified at levels that ensure it will never be publicly acknowledged. But the people who understand experimental aviation will remember what you accomplished. Sam accepted the orders, knowing that her official recognition would always be hidden in classified files that most people would never see. Sir, I want to ensure that future Aurora pilots understand the full implications of enhancement procedures before they volunteer. They deserve the informed consent that I didn't receive. Lieutenant, that's exactly why you're the right person to lead the Aurora 7 program. Your experience gives you the perspective to balance advancement with ethical responsibility. As Sam prepared to sign the documents that would transform her from military officer to director of the most advanced human enhancement program in American history, She reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. 5 days ago, she had been dismissed as inexperienced and unqualified for serious military operations. Today, she was entrusted with developing technologies that could determine the future of human capability in aerospace operations. The transformation had come at significant personal cost. Her brain had been modified without full consent. Her life would be permanently connected to classified operations, and her achievements would never be publicly recognized. But she had also discovered capabilities within herself that expanded the understanding of human potential. More importantly, she had proven that enhancement technologies could be developed and implemented in ways that respected human dignity. While advancing national capabilities, Sam signed the authorization documents, officially accepting her role as Director of Human AI Integration for the Aurora 7 program. With that signature, she committed to ensuring that future enhanced pilots would be treated with the ethical consideration that she had been denied, while developing capabilities that could protect American interests in an increasingly complex world. 6 months later, the first class of Aurora 7 candidates began training at a facility that officially didn't exist. The pilots were volunteers who had been fully informed about enhancement procedures, risks, and benefits. They trained using protocols that Sam had developed based on her own experience and insights gained from achieving unprecedented pilot AI integration. The young woman who had once been dismissed as just a cadet had become the architect of programs that would define the future of human enhancement in military aviation. Her legacy would be measured not in public recognition or conventional career advancement, but in the capabilities she developed and the ethical standards she established for technologies that pushed the boundaries of human potential. Standing in the control room of the Aurora 7 training facility, watching enhanced pilots achieve performance levels that exceeded anything previously thought possible, Sam realized that her true accomplishment hadn't been mastering experimental aircraft or completing an impossible mission. Her greatest achievement had been proving that human beings could be enhanced without losing their humanity, and that technological advancement could be pursued in ways that honored both human dignity and national security requirements. The cadet who had been underestimated and dismissed had become the guardian of humanity's expansion into capabilities that would define the future of aerospace operations. Sometimes the most important transformations begin with someone having the courage to prove that conventional limitations don't define human potential. In the classified world of experimental aviation, Sam Mitchell had demonstrated that the right person, in the right circumstances, with the right combination of natural talent and enhanced capability, could achieve things that changed the understanding of what was possible for the human species. Her story would never appear in history books or inspire public recognition, but in the hidden facilities where America's most advanced capabilities were developed, her legacy would continue to push the boundaries of human potential for generations to come. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.